This is the Legends Lounge podcast with Deji Omotoyibo, Segun Agbede, and Mumini Alao. Hello, my name is Deji Omotoyibo. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to the maiden edition of the Legends Lounge podcast. This is a podcast that tells you authentic African stories. We have to talk about our heroes of the past and those legendary situations when Nigerian sport found itself down the years. Well, I have two esteemed gentlemen, two legends in their own right, in the studios with me for the maiden edition of this. Let me first of all introduce Segun Agbede, the pundit. Segun and I go way back to UI days, Port Harcourt, and then of course we found ourselves in the same industry. Segun, we came up with this idea of this podcast. Your thoughts on how well or otherwise we have been telling our stories in the past?
I think we can do better. And we live in a society where we live literally for the moment. You know, history, I think some years ago, the government actually banned history in school or something like that. So basically, if you don't know where you're coming from, then you won't know where you're going. So we live in what I call the Ronaldo Messi generation, you know, and they're the two best players that ever lived. People, you know,
nobody wants to hear any other name.
Pele, Maradona, you know, so it's like, you know, because maybe we live in such a youthful society. I stand to be corrected, but I think 75% of Nigeria's population is under 40, you know, something along those lines. So people are quite young, but that's brilliant. But I think it behoves people like us, if you have the right platform, to talk about the good old days, you know, when the Enugu Rangers and ICC was a battle unto the death.
Yes.
The NMB, Flash Flamingos, Mighty Doctor, Alusa Rocks, and Abiola Babes, who even came a bit later, you know, stationery stores, Julius Berger. Come on. You know, so yeah, I think we do have stories to tell. Basically.
All right. Also with us, well, you know, it's very easy to introduce somebody that needs no introduction.
Exactly.
But let me introduce him anyway. Mumini Alao has written a lot of the stories that we talked about. Soccer Talk is a column that everybody, like some people will tell you, they started reading Soccer Talk when they were kids, and you find that there are people with white hair. So you'll be wondering how old he is. Mumini, you have been a storyteller par excellence. I think the advantage our generation has is the fact that we grew up in Nigeria. We were born in the 60s. Nigeria was a freshly independent country. We grew up seeing the trajectory of Nigerian sports, how teams grew, football, the great boxers, the great sprinters. So our generation is lucky in the sense that we saw all those stories. We lived those stories growing up. And I think we're probably in the best position to be telling the stories.
Absolutely, Deji, I agree with you. We say that experience is the best teacher. When you experience an event, when you experience occasion, when you experience time, you're able to tell the story better than somebody who is just reading about it or just watching it on YouTube, as Segun was trying to adduce to in terms of the younger generation. So we experienced this development, this transition that you are talking about. Just before we came on set, I was telling you that my first time at the National Stadium, you know, Lagos, was during First Act 1977. It wasn't even just for a football event. It was when Nigeria hosted the First Act 1977, and then the closing ceremony was held at the National Stadium. You know, so many countries from Africa gathering together to celebrate culture, tradition, and the rest of them. So these are stories that we need to tell. Okay, and because, you know, back then, we didn't have so much digital television. There was no internet. You know, there was no social media. You know, so you had to be there, okay, to be part of it. You had to be there. You have to be there to watch it, to see it happen. So, and I think those are stories that we can share with the younger generation, so that they know where we are coming from as a nation. That Nigeria has seen some really good times in the past, and we can be hopeful that some really good times again will come in the future.
You know, you and I were talking before, and I told you about my first radio commentary experience. 1971. I think it was WNDC, then Shooting Stars. They used to call Western Nigerian Development Corporation. I grew up in Ibadan. They were playing, I can't remember, it was Rangers in the final. And then they were leading, and then there was a penalty against WNDC, and the goalkeeper caught it. Made the save towards the end of the game. So he practically virtually meant that Shooting Stars won the FA Cup. And I remember the commentator, Ishola Folorunso.
All right.
Blessed memory. And he was like, the goalkeeper has caught it. The goalkeeper has caught it. Amusa Adisa, Amusaadisa. Spelled his name. That thing is stuck in my memory from that day. And you know then, mostly radio, because TV wasn't a thing. So radio gave us those perspectives. It was like, radio, they were trying to put the match in your mind's eye.
Absolutely.
You were listening, but you were watching. And our generation, you know, there was a time that even when TV came, we would put on the radio, kill the audio of the TV. I don't know whether any one of you did that.
Yes, we did.
And listen to it. So, Segun, what's your own first, maybe physical, stadium, or radio TV experience of Nigerian football that stayed with you down the years?
All right. My background is slightly different. I actually spent the first 10 years of my life in the UK before I came up. So I had a more direct interface with football then. Watching, I remember.
That's when you became a Man U fan.
Then I remember watching the 1970 World Cup live on TV.
Yeah.
Then of course I came back with that love of football, back to Nigeria and all that. But my very first stadium experience was the All Africa Games final. My father, may so rest in peace, was a lover of football. He used to take me to stadiums in the UK. So I went with my sister as well. And he took us to Surulere there, and we watched Nigeria beginning 2-0. The likes of
Haruna
Yakubu
Mambo,
Kenneth Olayombo,
Oyera
Choir,
Victor Odua was the captain.
Emmanuel Okala.
Fantastic team.
Incidentally,
that was pre. It wasn't Emmanuel Okala then. What was our keeper then? I can't remember his name now. But it wasn't Emmanuel. I think that was before him.
That was my first radio commentary.
Nigeria-Guinea. Really?
The Nigeria-Guinea 1973 All Africa Games final.
Yeah.
We beat them by 2 goals to
0.
Yes, that was my first radio commentary, and I think it was Dele Adetiba on commentary. That year. So when Deji was talking about his own first radio commentary, I just recall that 73 was my first one.
Yours.
And it was a victorious one for Nigeria. Incidentally, that was the first title that the national football team of Nigeria would win. So when we talk about history, what's the first thing Nigeria ever won? It was the gold medal in football at the All Africa Games.
I remember that. Fantastic team. Victor Odua was the captain. Tony Igwe on the right. There was Sonny Mohammed in midfield. There was Yakubu Mambo. You mentioned Yakubu Mambo on the right, Olayombo on the left. Tony Oyarikwa. Fantastic team.
Yeah.
My own experience slightly earlier. I watched stationary stores. Liberty Stadium in Ibadan then was the national stadium for Nigeria. So it was where I think I watched stationary stores play a Moroccan team. I think the match ended 3-2. Then Super Eagles too played there. I remember this guy that used to have Sam Gaba Okoye.
Oh, okay.
Used to wear Muiwa Oshodi, Segun Agbede. Those were the stationary stores. And Peter Fregene, who just passed. And at the popular stand, everybody stood. So I couldn't say I was 6 years old. I couldn't say. So my uncle had to put me, Mr. Segun Marcus, had to put me on his neck. That was the only way I would be able to see. Then you remember, of course, 72. You remember 72. There was a fantastic FA Cup final in 72. Mighty Jets and Bendel Insurance. That went into the annals as this is the first time a lot of Nigerians saw somebody, Sule Kekere, score from a corner kick directly. I think Bendel Insurance won that. Mighty Jets had the record of Shoroye, always getting to the finals, not winning and all of that. So what that did for us was we had local heroes. We had local heroes we could point to, and these were people we idolized. And that made our growing up, yes, we knew about the Pelés in the background, but the ones we could feel and resonate with were local heroes.
Yeah, and see, yeah. And funny enough, I think, I don't know, I can't remember how, but we did see a lot of football on TV back in the days. I mean, I remember the great Leventis United. In fact, that was later.
That was chronicle all of that.
That was much later. But in the good old days, I mean, those epic battles between ICC and Rangers. I mean,
I think talking about ICC and Rangers, that reminds me of 1976. 1977.
Yes.
ICC was the first Nigerian club
team
side
to win Cup Winners'
a
Cup.
Continental.
I watched every single game.
Exactly, to
at
win a
Liberty
Continental
Stadium.
trophy. And I remember that all the players got a Volkswagen Beetle as gifts. All right. And I also remember them wearing these trousers with very large
bell bottoms.
Bell bottoms.
Bell bottoms. Yeah.
And then, you know, the trousers.
It was tight at the top, and then it flare down.
Exactly.
We need to bring Big Shek here.
Exactly.
Go and explain that.
And then they had this bushy
Afro hair. So something like Segun.
I mean, something.
You know, so that was it. And I'm from Oyo State. And you know, shooting stars, they are the ambassadors of Oyo State.
Yes.
Okay, so I grew up loving and following shooting stars. So I remember that 1976 very, very, you know, very, very clearly. And then the following year in 77, Rangers now felt, well, whatever shooting stars can do, we can also do. So Rangers won the cup in 77. But what was most dramatic about the 77 Rangers victory was the semi-final
where they played
between Shooting Stars, the defending champions, and Rangers. Okay, and I remember Deji. The first match ended in a draw. The replay ended in the second leg.
Replay had to be taken to Kaduna.
Exactly. In fact,
because of crowd trouble.
Absolutely. You know, there was this ethnic rivalry between Shooting Stars and Rangers. So, and the match was taken to Kaduna. Eventually, I think Rangers won the game on penalties. And that was how they got to the final, and then they won the trophy. So, 76 it was Shooting Stars, 77 it was Rangers. And I think up till today, when those two clubs play, we remember where they are coming from.
Yeah, exactly, because they were you know, growing up, I felt so proud when Shooting Stars won it. And the following year, even though Rangers defeated Shooting Stars, I just wanted them to win it.
Okay.
And I remember, I think one of the finals, was it Rangers Tonnerre Kalala, was the first time I saw Roger Miller play.
Okay.
I think Rangers won one of the 4-1. Roger Miller scored the only goal for him, and it was a fantastic goal. Scored against Rangers, but Rangers went on to win that. So that period, we had great teams, and we nearly qualified for the 1978 World Cup. And that brings us to the first time football made me cry. Godwin Odie's own goal in 1977. I don't know whether you guys remember where you were at that point in time, Segun.
Fun of what I remember most about that game was there was a player called was it
Atuga?
No,
the goalkeeper.
Was it
Tarek Diaby for Tunisia? Tarek Diaby.
You know, I was still saying this on sports on my radio program. I was telling our younger listeners that one of the best players for me that's ever played for this country, and in my mind, the best midfielder ever is Mumini Alao.
Makes two of us. For me, he's the best footballer. We'll get to that.
Muda could play anywhere across the back four. The only place where Muda
I watched Mumini Alao is Shooting Stars in Ibadan. Mumini Alao, the only position I never saw Mumini Alao play was in goal.
Was a goal.
And left back. I remember left back because he wasn't too strong on his left. Every other position, the only position I didn't see Mumini Alao play was in goal and left back. Continue.
So he marked him out of the game in Tunisia,
goalless. He was goalless
in Tunisia.
Then I'll never forget. You see, that's how the wheel spins or whatever. Godwin, there was a time Okala was beaten, and Godwin would
stop the ball on the line
and waved everybody forward.
In Tunisia, and I remember that goal. I remember that.
So it was a given that we're going to win in Lagos.
Actually, what I remember about that game against Tunisia, the one that we needed to win to go to the World Cup in 78. I wasn't in the stadium. I was actually in a bus.
Whoa.
Really?
All right. And I was listening to the commentary on radio. And when Odie scored that goal, I remember very clearly what the commentator said.
Nigeria has scored against Nigeria.
A Nigerian has scored against Nigeria.
The great Ernest Okonkwo.
A Nigerian has scored against Nigeria. Godwin Odie. Unforgettable.
Let me tell you my own story. I was in Government College in Ibadan. It was 77. And we had this TV, like Segun said, we used to watch some games. So this match was on TV. I think they had some technical issues. The match now came on just about 10 minutes before the goal. And when I used to play football then, I used to tie a band. I used to call myself Odi. So we were at the dining hall and we were watching expectantly because we were so sure that, like Segun said, goalless draw in the first game, which they played very well. So we were sure that just come and finish the job in Lagos. And that incident happened. And I had my head in my hands. And tears were streaming down my fingers.
Wow.
Because my schoolmates were taunting me that see you Odi.
Yeah. that's very interesting, Deji, because I think you actually beat a lot of younger people to adopting Odi as your idol then.
Yes.
You know, because it was actually after...
More fashionable to even pick strikers.
It was after Odi scored that own goal that he became... infamous, if I can say.
Yes.
You know, because then, when we're playing set football, anybody who scored an own goal now was an ODA. You know, so that was when the
ODA was such a fantastic.
It was an
defender.
excellent defender.
I mean, it was unfortunate how that panned out.
Yeah.
But it was probably our best player, including all the strikers. Such a fantastic defender. And maybe along the line, we'll talk about school sports in some other episodes of the podcast, because school sports was where most of these guys, you know, came from.
Yeah. I think Odi went to Greg's. Fimbas or Greg's.
Yeah, he went to school in Lagos, definitely.
No.
Fimbas and Greg's
or
and all
Greg's.
of that.
I think more likely Greg's.
That was 77, but 76 was when I think Nigeria started showing signs at the continental level. After 73, we had won the gold medal Africa Games. Yeah. 76, Ethiopia, Dire Dawa. Nigeria placed third at the AFCON. At a time, nobody gave Nigeria a chance. I remember that, I think that year, some of the big players refused to come. But that was when people like Mumini Alao, Segun Agbede, Mohammed, Kunle Awesu, they went there and they surprised us with the third the bronze
I think
medal.
it was Rangers players.
Yes,
because at that time,
issues,
you know, they had won the league 3 times successively. I think 73, 74, 75.
Yeah.
And the players were saying at that time, no Rangers, no Nigeria.
Yes,
you remember that, Deji?
I remember that.
No Rangers, no Nigeria.
That.
So when they were invited to the national team, some, you know, a lot of them were feeling too big, you know. So eventually they had to be dropped, and then the team was. So we went with players mostly from ICC Shooting Stars, and then Raka Rovers, Bendel Insurance. Those were the guys that now went to the AFCON. The superstar for the AFCON in '76 for Nigeria was Haruna Ilerika.
Yes.
You know, and I remember my interview with him many years later. He said to me that an Ethiopian actually offered him his daughter. Yes, that he wanted.
How well he played.
Exactly, because he was a hero for Nigeria. And I think the structure of the tournament at that time, you know, was quite different from what we have now.
Yeah, it was kind of league format.
It was kind of league format. So. The final really wasn't just 2 teams playing the final. It was, I think it was 3 teams. Nigeria, 3 teams, Morocco.
I think we drew with Morocco.
Yes.
But so eventually, it was that third position. We celebrated it like it was, because we had up till then, the Green Eagles back then hadn't done anything at AFCON, and I think that, of course, dovetailed to the 77. We failed to qualify for the World Cup. 78 was a painful one, though. I think it was in Ghana.
It was in Ghana.
Yeah, where we lost to Uganda in the semi-final. And we had drawn with Ghana.
Wasn't that the goalkeeper?
Pondamali, yes.
He put into several.
We had drawn with Ghana in the group stage. One car, that was the Ghanaian goalkeeper. When Segun Agbede header, kind of knocked off Joseph Carr.
He used to wear a face cap.
And I think those were the early signs that showed that Nigerian football was becoming a continental power, at least, Segun.
Do you know, I had an argument, I think I was arguing with Charles in the studio the other day.
You guys are always arguing.
Yeah. but I'm always right.
It's all good.
That's the first time in my life that I saw what Segun did. For a striker to head the ball
downwards,
You know, so Charles was saying he didn't mean it. I said, why? Because when he headed the ball down and in, I said, why are you not heading the ball right to you? When he headed the ball and he beat the goalkeeper.
Absolutely.
Because when you head the ball down, the goalkeeper cannot judge the fight of the ball. That's the first time, it's the first player ever saw a world football score that kind of header. It was a magical. That was 1978.
I think one story I remember about 78 in Ghana was I think one of the matches. I can't remember the details very well now, but some of the players. So I think one of the teams had to be flown into the stadium by helicopter. Okay. I will try to get the details of what happened.
I remember that faintly.
Yes,
I remember that faintly.
So maybe in subsequent, episodes of our podcast, we'll be giving our listeners, details of
what
that.
What I remember about that was the game against Uganda that we lost in the semi-final. Adoke was taking the ball backwards. He lost possession, and then I think they went to score. And that was when I realized how caustic football fans can be. Because Adoke had been one of our best players since he got into the team. Got to the team as a University of Lagos student.
Great cockite.
Yeah, and of course, you're talking about Lagos schools. He went to CMS Grammar School. He was the schoolboy star. And I was like, this man made one mistake. Yes, we have lost. Why are people so? So my mind went to him. My mind went back to Odi, and I was like, oh boy, football fans, don't joke with.
No,
do you know, I still had a conversation with Odi maybe 4 or 5 years ago. He came to Nigeria.
Yeah.
I can't remember, but I'm saying we actually spoke to him.
Okay.
And he still has regrets about that.
Feels the pain, yeah.
In America, he lives in America. He said he has never lived it down.
America,
He said he has never lived it down.
Then tell your story about that. In I think it was Segun Agbede got married, I think in 1976 or something, if I'm not mistaken, in Ibadan. Coincidentally, his wife was a Tejumola. The younger sister of his wife was a senior and my brother's friend from Government College Ibadan. So that day, they had a friendly match, I can't forget, in his honor at the Liberty Stadium against Kenyan Brewers. They flew Kenyan Brewers in. And my cousin Segun Agbede used to play for Shooting Stars. And Segun was one that scored the only goal. But that game, his teammates, national team, 78, Segun Agbede married in 78. I remember now.
All right.
78. So his teammates were all there. I had, because of my relationship with the family of the bride, I had some kind of access. And somebody nearly scored an own goal. And the whole stadium went, Odi. And he was there. He was just like that.
Wow.
Odi was there. He was there.
Yeah, I said it. That
he was there.
It was
and I felt for him. Of course, we'll go back to the days of course, same thing with, you guys spoke to Ayegbeni one time on your radio show to how everybody's still.
Yes, that was 2010.
Yeah, that's the life of a footballer.
That's more.
Also, let's fast forward to a couple of years later.
Yeah.
1980, African Cup of Nations, Lagos and Ibadan. You used to have this 8-team format, 4 teams in one group, then the top 2, they played in the semi-finals and on to the final.
If you don't mind, Deji, just before we get to 1980, let's just stop over at 79.
Okay.
And that's club football again.
Oh, yes.
79.
Bendel Insurance.
Beating
Shooting Stars in the semi-final and
beating
Rangers in the final. Thank you for reminding me.
Those
were the two best teams.
You know when Shooting Stars won the Cup Winners' Cup in 76 and Rangers won it in 77.
Yeah.
They were ruling the roost.
Yes.
Okay. Then
this Bendel Insurance
came from nowhere. They came from nowhere. All right. And they beat Shooting Stars by 2-0 in the semi-final.
Flat.
And I remember very well.
That was that semi-final where there was crowd trouble and people died.
It was the semi-final, yes.
That's semi-final, yes.
About 29 people died at the National Stadium.
About
29 people died.
There was a crush.
I remember very well that when Bendel Insurance beat Shooting Stars by 2-0 in the semi-finals, Rangers fans were making jest of Shooting Stars.
Were jubilating.
They were jubilating.
What happened? They lost 3-0.
When they got to the final, Bendel Insurance beat Rangers by 3-0.
They took their time.
3-0. I'm trying to remember the name of the captain of that Bendel Insurance team.
I remember some of the names.
Yeah.
Peter Egareva.
Was there.
Ogboe.
Alabi Essien was the coach.
Henry
Ogboe. That's the name I'm trying to remember. Henry Ogboe was a fantastic left-footed player.
He was
they just came out of the blue.
Absolutely.
And they took out, You know, one thing is to beat Shooting Stars.
Yes, and then
You now take on Rangers, and not just beat them. You decimate Rangers.
Rangers, I'm fairly so would have thought they was overwhelming. Our rivals are out. These small boys.
And really, they were small boys.
They were small boys.
Yeah, they were.
The Bendel Insurance boys, they were really small.
And that was Alabi SN. If you know him, that was the team that made him the legend that was Alabi SN. Because
I think that was the time. That was the year that Bendel Insurance actually became a force to reckon with in Nigerian football.
Yeah.
And I think for subsequent years too, I think they got to the final again. I remember them beating stationary stores in another final.
No, if I'm not mistaken, go back to 1972. I mean, it was Bendel Insurance and Mighty Jets. That's 72 fantastic final, and Bendel Insurance won.
But it was that 79 that actually brought them, to limelight.
So
80.
Here we are, 1980, Nations Cup hosting at home.
Yeah.
We needed to win that because we had won Continental trophies. We nearly went to the World Cup. We needed that statement win. What were your thoughts of the 1980?
It was
Nations Cup.
Nations Cup. It was just brilliant. I mean, household team: Segun Agbede, Aloysius Atuegbu, Aduke Amesimeka,
Owoblo,
Best Ogedegbe. You know, I mean, we had like the best of the best because we had Best Ogedegbe. In fact, people have described Best as one of the most complete goalkeepers ever. That is a goalkeeper that could have played.
He was the one. He started this playing from the back, playing with your feet.
That he trained. He liked to play. He liked to play. According to Chagwa, he liked to play with the guys in training, not being post. It was that good. Mutalawal. So we're talking about absolutely brilliant players. So for me, it was a dream come true. I didn't see any of the games like watched them on TV.
I remember really I was 1980 was my final year in secondary school.
Okay.
Igomede Grammar School in Ota, Ogun State. At that time, the Obasanjo Farms was not there when we were in school. But that was where Obasanjo Farms was cited later. And you remember Obasanjo Farms was popular because the Super Eagles used to
go and camp there. Ota Farms. I remember that.
Exactly.
Used to go and camp there.
Back then in 1980, it wasn't there. But what I remember in 1980 was we had a Ghanaian housemaster in my hostel in Igomede Grammar School. And Ghana, they had won the cup in 78 at home.
Yes.
They were the defending champions.
Yes.
Ghana played in Ibadan. In the Ibadan group.
Yes.
Algeria,
Morocco. Morocco, Algeria. I can't remember the...
Three of them. I can't remember the fourth. I think this was actually three of them. Okay, four of them. Okay, I remember Morocco was there, Algeria was there. In Lagos, Nigeria was with Tanzania,
Cote d'Ivoire,
and the one other team.
I can't remember. We won the first game. We beat Tanzania. We drew with Cote d'Ivoire.
We drew the Cote d'Ivoire.
And I think we won the last game.
We won the last game to qualify for the semi-finals.
Morocco in the semi-final.
Exactly. Now, Ghana needed to beat Morocco in their final game in Ibadan for them to qualify for the semi-finals in Lagos. Those of us watching in Igomede Grammar School, we were praying that Ghana should lose because we didn't want to play Ghana. We didn't want to see their faces in Lagos at all. So the housemaster, Mr. John Amoa, he was watching. So we went to the window to his room. We were watching
from the window.
Now, so when Morocco scored, we were all shouting, So you heard our cheers.
Yes.
Who were those guys? We ran away. So eventually, when Ghana won, when Morocco beat Ghana, I still remember clearly Mr. John Amoa's statements. And the way Ghanaians speak their English, this unique way. He said, why are Nigerians supporting the Moroccans? Why are they supporting the North Africans? Why are they not
started from there.
He said,
all these jollof words.
Why are you not supporting your brothers? Your brothers. we are brothers.
The brothers have been dealing with us from the 1950s.
I remember my dad telling me that he stopped watching Green Eagles at Onikon Stadium because one time Ghana came to Onikon and beat Nigeria 7-0 in Lagos.
My dad told me the same story.
He said that was when he stopped watching.
That's when they were probably the Red Devils. I think they were known as Red Devils.
Yeah, the Nigerian team was Red Devils.
It was Red Devils. So
7-0.
He said he was so deflated he stopped watching.
That time Ghana used to beat Nigeria home and away.
Home and away.
I
remember also one time there was this Okpoku brothers, Owusu brothers, Kwesi Owusu and girls. They came to Nigeria and beat us 3-2. I think it was after the All Africa Games, maybe qualifier for something. You know, I remember that one too very, very well. You know, so Ghana was like our nemesis. Maybe your teacher didn't get the memo. Like Ghana was.
So eventually, I think semi-finals, it was Felix Owolabi that scored
the only goal.
The only goal will beat Morocco. I think I remember that goal.
And I think that was a master stroke when Felix Owolabi now became a wing back.
Yeah.
Because the coach, Otto Gloria, found a way to put him and Aduke in the same team.
Absolutely.
And that absolutely worked brilliantly, even in the final against Algeria. But my story about 1980 was also in Ibadan.
Okay.
Algeria had this fullback, Mustafa Koichi. He was the first, himself and Felix Owolabi were the first, what you call box-to-box fullback that I've seen, wing back that I've never seen. He could take the ball from the edge of this box and get to the edge of the opponent's box. He was so good when he got to the final. He was so good. Fans in Ibadan, they have a way of naming. They started calling him Mustafa Koizi. His name was Mustafa Koizi.
Okay.
When he got to the final, I was afraid because he was playing in the position Segun Agbede was playing on. But you know what? Big Sheik took him to the cleaners. I mean, so the first 5-10 minutes, he was a gunner. Because there was one particular incident that Big Sheik just turned him around and he was on his seat of his pants, and Big Sheik just, pityingly went past us because he scored 2 goals in that game. So that was it for us, Segun, the first major trophy. What did it mean to you back then?
Well, tremendous excitement. Yeah, I mean, the Green Eagles were everything to them because, as Riley said, we're very, what's the word now? Foreign football had not really permitted our borders, I mean, I used to read Shoot and March and magazines like that, following foreign football from, but everything was on. We had everything that we wanted. The Green Eagles were comprised of the very best of
local talent.
Of our local talents. African football, it was a big deal. We all knew we knew the heights we got in Derrida in 76, the lows of crashing out in 78 when we had a loaded team and we thought we were going to go all the way.
We actually won the bronze medal again in 78.
Yes.
Because I remember in the 3rd place match against, was it Tunisia?
Yes, I think it was Tunisia.
I think it was Tunisia.
Yeah, I think it was.
They abandoned the game.
Yes.
They abandoned the game. They said the referee was Pacha.
So winning in 80 and then economically, I mean, hey, in those days, money day, 1980, I think, so it's my 2nd year in university, there are things like bursary, money, do you understand? So life was good back in the day.
And back in the day, if you wanted to watch the Super Eagles, so I'll fast forward now to when we lost to Algeria in the qualifier for 1982 World Cup, 1981, which was a very sad story. When you want to watch the Super Eagles at Onikon Stadium, 10 o'clock is your cut-off time.
Absolutely.
10 a.m.
Absolutely.
If you don't get to the stadium by 10 a.m.,
you are not going to watch.
Forget it.
That is it. Very true.
Forget it.
Very true.
And then, going back to that team, Mumini Alao, the final.
Yeah.
The 3rd goal, maybe guys can go and Google it. The 3rd goal, the movement between Felix Owolabi, Adoke, and then Mumini Alao finishing. And we got back to this Mumini Alao. We were talking about Mumini Alao earlier. Mumini Alao played as a striker in that final. He missed a couple of goals, but eventually he scored the clinching goal, the 3rd goal that kind of sealed it. And that's how versatile
he was.
I hosted a show one time that they were talking about Nigeria's greatest 11. Maybe we'll do that sometime along the side of those podcasts. And when it was like, well, maybe it's recency bias, maybe because I watched him. And I told them that Mumini Alao is not just the best midfielder in Nigerian football. To me, he was the best footballer.
I think, I think I'd agree.
It was a natural.
That's my opinion.
It was always calm, always composed. And then, front of a big shout out to Chief Felix Owolabi.
Yeah.
He was 70 recently.
Not long ago.
And we actually interviewed him on the Sport Zone. And he said all about the President Sheikh Shagiri coming into the dressing room before the game kicks. I said, look, this is not about money, about what we're going to just go there and just go and die on the pitch. Go and that Nigeria is behind you. Forget no distractors, go there and die. And that's exactly.
But there was a lot of money for them thereafter.
Yeah,
well, there was
houses.
They all got houses. They all got houses at the
they got cars.
They got cars. The popular car at that time was Peugeot.
Yeah. They got the creme de la creme. They got and those of them and shooting stars had got Volkswagen. A few years earlier. So, 4 years earlier. So they got, and they got, I know the lane because my uncle used to live around there. In Festac there, it was not just, it was full, complete duplexes, standalone duplexes. They had these Green Eagles Avenue. That's what they got. Every single one of them. So
and quite a number of them lived in that. I remember Aniwos who lived there for quite some time. Big Sheikh also lived there for some time.
Lived in Festac. They got fantastic, because that was and then I think that game or that win was what made the whole country realize this is a fantastic unifying factor.
I did apart from that. I think then that what that game did for us too psychologically. We slew our inferiority complex. When it came to North African competition.
Teams,
because they got the best over us.
Yes. Before then,
because North African football has always been very technical.
Even up till now.
That's why I said has always been. You understand?
Always been.
So we
and I think it's because of their closeness to Europe. Okay. I think they got exposed to European football faster than those of us down here,
and the infrastructure and all that.
Exactly.
And it was always also a case of it was in grades. We felt kind of inferior. I remember when we were going to play Morocco one time, and they said Moroccan striker Mary Krimu was playing for a Swiss side. He's playing in Switzerland. It looked like that Moroccan team that went to the was 86. Okay, 86. It was 82 was Algeria.
82 was Algeria.
Knocked us out
86
the last
was
86 was Morocco.
And
they both got wins.
They had an excellent,
and it was a big deal. Especially 82 Algeria beat West Germany then. 86 Morocco actually beat Portugal.
I remember Aziz Boudabella.
So Abdulaziz Boudabella for me the best Moroccan player ever.
Absolutely.
Abdulaziz Boudabella very and then Mary Krimu and then so for me and then there was Timumi who eventually won African Football of the Year. I think Timumi or something like that. I think what Segun was saying, we felt a bit of inferiority complex towards the North Africans because they were so technical.
We had dreadful. Tunisia took us out in 77.
Algeria took us out in 81.
I mean, come on.
So it got to a point where they themselves too started developing, and I think it became like a nexus of African football was rising because Algeria had done well by beating West Germany. Morocco had done well. I think Morocco actually won 2 games in that competition. They beat Poland. Then they beat Portugal, and I think they qualified for the
Don't forget, Deji, when Tunisia beat us to qualify for 78,
they also won again.
They also beat Mexico.
They beat Mexico.
They did
3-1.
And I was rooting for them.
They beat Mexico.
They were quick. They were pacey.
At that time, it was only one team representing Africa at the World Cup. Zaire didn't do very well in 74. Tunisia now, did so well in 78. And then by 82, I think we had slots. We now got a second slot, to go to the world. That's for Africa.
So for Nigerian football, after this 1980, when we thought we were going to, there was a lull. Because in 82, we didn't even get out of the group stage. I remember Libya beating us 3-0. I remember clearly Peter Fregene was brought back as goalkeeper.
Deji, I'm sorry to interrupt you again. Because you seem to be forgetting some very nasty experiences in between. In 81...
Yeah, I talked about it when Algeria came to beat us.
Exactly, because...
I was in the stadium.
Less than a year after we beat Algeria by 3 goals convincingly. They came back to the same national stadium.
They beat us 2-0.
And beat us 2-0.
World Cup qualifier.
That was where the...
And there was a controversy in that incident. If you remember, Christian Chukwu had retired.
That was it. They lined up.
And then they brought him back.
And Steven Keshi was the coming man.
And Steven Keshi was the man that had to. And I think we panicked because it was Algeria. We brought him back. I was right behind the goalpost where the 2 goals were scored.
The 2 goals were scored in the first half.
Yeah, I was behind that goalpost. I know what we had done. We bought newspapers. We tore the newspapers into tiny. We wanted to do confetti when Nigeria scores. And I remember Tunde Bamidele of Chidin's house, and the first goal was like hesitancy between the 2 of them. The Algerian nipped in, and that was heartbck. For a long time, I didn't go to the stadium. For a long time, I didn't go to the stadium.
We are talking about a center, with all due respect to both legends, Tunde Bamidele. That's a rather immobile.
Yes.
Central defense.
No, because I think it was panic. We had gotten to that final stage and we were playing Algeria. It was I think not only Christian Chukwude, we brought Thompson Osinye back. Thompson Osinye had left for US.
I remember he was
They brought
back.
Andrew Atuegbu back. One of the Atuegbu brothers. All because we wanted to
Aloy and Andrew.
And
who were bastions in 1980.
And then again, the Nigeria Football Association increased the gates.
Yes.
Someone told me this story. Someone told me, I can't remember which of the players told me the story. He said they were going to play and they got into the national stadium and the fans were booing the Eagles and cheering, and that unsettled them because they didn't understand. Apparently, the gate fees were increased.
Yes, by the NFA.
And the fans got angry and
they took it out on the team.
After the game, myself, Femi Shoremeku, my friend, and I can't remember the third friend, after the game, we sat at that stadium for like 30 minutes. We were in shock that again we're not going to the World Cup. Because at that point in time, we believed we had arrived as a force. We should be going to the World Cup, African champions. And then I think 84 was now a new set of Super Eagles because we didn't do any 82. It was not Stephen Keshi more or less. Stephen Keshi, I think that was
Rashid
Yekini. That was when Onigbinde
largely home-based team.
Young, again, beautiful player.
Ademola Adesina
was the oldest player.
Most experienced player.
Ademola Adesina, you mentioned it. Defense minister. Shofoluwe. Then there was this Peter Rufai. There was this young
Patrick Okala.
There was this young player. Hey, what's his name now? I'm sure I'll remember.
Okay. Maybe if
Chibuzo.
Oh, he was good. Yes. He was research. He was.
We used to call him Chibuzo Eyileju.
He played in the midfield. But he was scoring most of the goals.
Most of the goals. You know, so it was a young team, which was, and they got to the final, even though they lost to Cameroon.
That's the only time. And I will say this as a totally unbiased Super Eagles.
That's the only time Cameroon beat us fairly.
That's the only one. That's the only time.
Because we lost to Cameroon in 84, 88, and I think 90. Yes, 90.
No,
not 90. It was
2000.
2000, sorry, not 90. 90 we lost.
But you remember, Deji, 84, Cameroon had just come back from the World Cup in 82.
Yeah,
you remember.
So they were.
They
didn't lose a game.
They didn't lose
that
any
World
game.
Cup. Yes, they didn't lose
that
a game.
World Cup.
They didn't lose any game. Italy just got past them on.
And we had a young team.
You
know, so
we even scored first.
We scored first.
They deserve to win.
It was a fantastic Cameroon team.
The fact that we even got
Theophilus Abega was the
fact that we even got to the final, to be honest with you, was good. So as I said, I will please anybody watching when they clip me.
Segun has said this thing so many times because in 88, 86 we didn't qualify surprisingly. In 88. And also scored perfectly good goal. That was chalked off.
Yes.
And at that time, people started these conspiracy theories. Mr. Hayatu was the president. But I don't like conspiracy theories because you need too many people to make the conspiracy work. But it is what it is. We lost to them. But then I think the traces, then Yekini had come into the team. I think the molding, the early bits and pieces of what turned out to be a great team in the mid-90s was being formed at that time, despite the fact that
I remember I interviewed Keshi. And I told him to tell his story of the AFCON from 1980, and of course he mentioned, you know, how he was dropped for Christian Chukwu, you know, and all of that. But in 84, the key point in 84 was that semi-final against Egypt.
Yes.
We scored. We were 2 goals down.
2 goals down.
And then they went in for halftime. Keshi said, Air Commodore Ikazobo, who was the FA chairman at that time, he came to the dressing room and said to them, look at me very well. You know I'm a military officer. If you lose this game, you are going straight from here to jail.
Really? Talk about superior motivation.
No wonder. I saw that they came back, they scored 2 goals. I think we won on penalties. I think it was on penalties. Yeah, I think it was on penalties.
If you lose this game, you are going from here to jail. And he walked out.
And I think that was the first time the legend of Peter Rufai.
Yes, and he said he
saving
penalty. Ikazobo just walked out of the
and left them to their face.
Kenny said he just burst out crying. he just started to cry.
If we can fast forward to the present, I know we're still in the 80s. Yeah. But if we can fast forward to the present, do you think that will work with the current batch of Super Eagles?
How?
Just say.
How?
Just say.
How? Some of them may walk out of this dressing room when you finish talking.
So
that 84 team was very good. Had the makings. Some of them, I think, they left to America. Okoku brothers, Iwilegbu, all of them.
A lot of them.
A lot of those Finbas sets. You can see some Finbas in Lagos. But by the time we got to 88, I think the signs were there. That
by
team was
by 88.
Which we lost in the final again.
I started going abroad. Europe.
And then 88 was first time Akwaraji was in that tournament.
Akwaraji came.
Akwaraji came for that tournament.
Keshi could not participate because Anderlecht
refused to
release him. And who again was in Europe at that time? I think Rufai had gone to Europe.
Yeah.
Rufai had gone to Europe. He was at Lokeren, at that time. He went to Lokeren from Benin Republic.
Benin Republic, yes. Dragons or so.
Dragons.
I think Etim Esin had also gone to Europe.
Yeah.
After the World Youth Championship.
In 87.
Yeah. So we had quite a number of players already in Europe.
The confidence was being built.
Exactly.
Exposure was.
Professionalism.
Who was our coach in 88 again?
88 was Manfred Honor.
Manfred Honor was the German. Manfred Honor.
Do you guys remember anybody called 1010?
1010 was 88.
He was 88.
It was 88.
With all due respect to Brighton Mokaro. With all due respect.
Yeah. That was a red.
That
was a double red card.
He should have been sent to jail for that tackle.
Because we're a man down.
Yes.
And the generals of that.
And they couldn't make any substitution anymore.
That
took him out.
It was right on the knee.
Yes, it took him out.
He should have been sent to jail.
I've never seen such a vicious foul.
And he got away with it.
In English there's foul, but this was a foul. An extreme foul.
I think when you talk about what's his name again, 1010.
Brighton Mokaro.
Brighton Mokaro. Remember himself and Sunday Eboigbe.
That
were the Iron Men of Nigerian football team.
Yes.
They were.
I remember, I think we did a story on them in Complete Football at that time. And some of the strikers, we interviewed some strikers, we were asking them about, the toughest defenders that they have played against in the Nigerian league. And
their name
kept
coming up.
No, guys.
No, because in those days,
yeah.
Defenders could get away with blue money.
Murder.
I remember one of the strikers said, if you hit them, you will feel the pain.
I like that.
And if they hit you, you will feel the pain more. So either way,
just avoid it.
If you run into them, you will be the
whichever way you lose.
The toughest guys.
So the 88, it was, that was it was not a red card offense, it was a capital offense.
We should have won the trophy in 88. We had the best team in Cameroon, in my opinion. We had
that's when Mosu hit.
We had the best team.
Yeah, that's what it was. Morocco. We lost
Morocco.
Yes,
finally they scored. I think Rojamila scored the penalty. No,
Kunde scored the penalty.
But it was Rojamila that won the penalty.
That won the penalty. Off Eboigbe.
Off Eboigbe.
Tackle.
So, but I think the goal by Erinwosu, which was a
good goal. Clear goal.
If that goal had stood,
the game would have changed.
Probably. Of course, would have gone on to win that game. It was a clear goal. Rocket
shots. We now started this history of getting to finals. 84 finals we lost. 88 finals we lost. 1990 finals we lost. But the difference now was that a gentleman had been inserted into the coaching annals of the national team, and it was to change Nigerian football forever. Clemens Westerfall.
Yeah.
1990, the first game I remember, we were demolished by Algeria. I think it was 5-1.
Yeah, 5-1.
5-1. But
like
that team,
nothing.
if I remember too, that team had a lot of young players. Daniel Amokachi, Uche Okechukwu, those are players that were playing in the league that he picked up and had confidence. And I remember Albert Anijeku, and I remember they went on to the final before they lost only 1-0. But the stage was set. But you remember in 1989 again, we lost to Cameroon.
Absolutely. I was going to bring your attention to that.
We lost to Cameroon, going to the World Cup.
Yes, and I think what happened at that time, because Paul Hamilton was the coach of the Super Eagles, and he got us to that last game against Cameroon. Unfortunately, I would say that was the time that West came into the picture. I think, in my opinion, looking back, it
should have left Paul Hamilton.
Paul Hamilton should have finished that assignment because West took us to that game in Yaoundé.
And we needed a draw.
Okay, and he wasn't quite familiar with most of the players. So I think we put a wrong team on the pitch on that day and we lost the game.
All right, but can we do some time travel now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me press pause. And because what you're saying, you see, if we don't learn from our past, we're
going to be condemned to repeat it.
Yeah. Let's fast forward to January 2025. We have crucial World Cup qualifiers coming up in March. The NFF, in their wisdom, seem determined to want to pick a foreign coach. We have Augusto Guavande has entered. Now, learning from what you just said, will it make any... I mean, how will a foreign coach that you just parachute into Super Eagles in January be able to perform credibly? It's an academic question for me.
Well, I guess one of the reasons for this program, all right, you said earlier on at the beginning that Nigeria dropped history from the education curriculum. So you don't learn from what has happened to you in the past. You know, so I guess this podcast, as Deji said,
I'll tell you. I think NFF are determined. Have decided on a foreign coach.
No, which is
fine. But we're talking now about the timing.
Just get the person in.
Because for that game against Cameroon in Yaoundé, okay, all we needed was a draw to go to the World Cup.
And we lost 1-0.
And then we lost it. We lost it.
Because what the key words for me that made my ears pick up were Westhoff, who went on to do great things for the country, was not at that moment in time.
No, he wasn't
familiar with his players.
He wasn't.
Anyway, we're going to round up in a bit because this is part 1 of the show. Part 2, when we get to the 80s, go through the 80s, of course 90s, and culminating in that 94, 98, which we call the glory years of Nigerian football. We'll get to that on the next podcast. And Mumini has fantastic stories because Mumini followed the team to almost every single match. And you know one thing I like about the 94 team? It coincided with the start of my career as a sportscaster. My very first appearance on radio was the Monday after we lost to Cote d'Ivoire 2-1
in
Abidjan. And it looked like we had been derailed. I was on Larry Izamoje's show in Abeokuta to talk about that. Was the first time I would enter a studio to do sports. I'd done regular programming and all of that. So, but you know the 94 team, I'm sure Complete Sports also has a story to tell. The 94 team, I think they actually opened up the Nigerian media and commercial landscape with what they did, how they did it, local interests. I think media just ballooned with them.
And the profile of the players.
And the profile of the players. I don't know whether Mumini agrees with that before we round up.
That's an understatement. Because I thought you said we should leave it for the next.
Well, we will. I've just told this is a
teaser,
to set the tone.
That is fine. You said that was where you launched your career.
Yeah.
Okay. My career started in 1988. Okay. But it was 94. Okay. That was
when it blossomed.
Absolutely. And it's based on what happened. You know, Nigeria qualifying for the World Cup for the first time. And I was privileged to follow the team, as you said, from beginning to end. The entire qualifiers for the
Papenda.
So I think I will leave those stories for the next podcast.
You know, I as a participant, I am looking forward.
Yeah. So, gentlemen,
life is about
good to have you. Good to have you. We can talk about Nigerian football or Nigerian sports for the next 2 hours or so. But that's how we draw anchor on this episode of the Legends Lounge podcast. Next episode, next week, we'll take you through the 94-98 glory years of Nigerian football. Of course, the right man is here who followed it all. Mumini Alao will regale us with all those stories. And I'll also tell you stories about my experience at DBN TV, 23rd floor. Mumini knows about that. Thank you for joining us on Legends Lounge Podcast. We'll see you next week. Thank you, Segun. Thank you, Mumini.
Pleasure.
Bye-bye. That was the Legends Lounge Podcast with Deji Omotoyibo, Segun Agbede, and Mumini Alao.